Okay, we are live.
Hello and welcome back to the fourth plenary of the 12th Social Business Day. My name is Lamia Hafiz and I'm very happy to welcome you all. In this plenary organized by UNOS Environment Hub, the session is titled Shifting Towards a New Civilization Within the Planetary Limits, and will present the latest figures on current environment crisis and foster dialogues on how we can leverage social businesses to reach a circular economy within the planetary limits. I would like to introduce Ms. Christina Yeager, co-founder and managing director of UNOS Environment Hub, to moderate this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lamia, and welcome everyone. It's a great pleasure to be connected again with you as every year during Social Business Day. And we are very happy for the opportunity that we've been given from UNOS and to organize this plenary with the title Shifting Towards a New Civilization Within the Planetary Limits. We're gonna have 45 minutes, and the session is divided in 3 parts, where first we're gonna have a background of the current global situation and how critical it is and what the potential of the circular economy implies to us. And then the second and the third part, we want to look on how to make, how the practical side of the circular economy implementation looks like, where most of you know the circular economy consists of 2 elements. One is the technological cycle and the other one is the biological cycle. And hence the second component will focus on the topic of circularity within the plastic waste sector, and the third component on the preservation of biodiversity. And without any further ado, I would like to welcome and invite our first speaker, which is Dr. Marianne Chacho, who is a professor of industrial environmental management at the Yale School of the Environment and director of the Center for Industrial Ecology. She is also appointed at the Yale School of Management and the National University of Singapore. Her research and teaching focus on industrial ecology, business and environment issues, circular economy, waste management, and urban sustainability. Her research has championed the study of industrial symbiosis involving geographically based exchanges of materials, energy, water, and wastes within networks of businesses globally. She also has carried out many studies of industrial ecology in China and India as a means of valuing environmental benefits alongside economic ones. Marianne, we're very happy to have you here during our plenary, and we'll be looking forward to hear from you on how you assess the current global situation and to your remarks. Over to you, Marianne.
Thank you very much, Christina. And I just want to say that I'm so delighted to be here. This is my first time here. And you see that I've put up a slide that asks about whether in general, the Earth is rising or the Earth is setting. This is one of the famous photos that allows you to be on the moon looking back at the Earth. And so let's think about the Earth as we continue. I'm very pleased to be invited here for the UNOS Environment Hub. I want to say it was an easy decision for me because I realized how much I really was fond of all 3 of these words. UNOS, of course, and who needs no introduction. Environment, which is my passion, and I think it's why we're here today. And finally, a hub. And a hub suggests there's a lot of people working together, running around and working urgently to find some solutions. So for all of these reasons, I just think I couldn't miss the UNOS Environment Hub. So let's move on and look at our next slide. And I think everyone, let's go back one. We all have many ways of describing, especially climate change issues. And so just to get us in the mood, I thought I would show a few photos from around the world that tells us that things are going wrong. So in the upper left, you see a pier in Colombia. It can barely be used because the water level is so low. And according to the experts, it's so dry due to climate change. And we've seen many water photos. This is one of many one important one. Let's move over to a drone image from Germany. This is a forest of spruce trees in Germany's Harz mountain region. And for several summers, there's just been a small fraction of rain. And so that's really stressing the forests across Germany and making them more susceptible to pests. I'll take one from the US, and this lonely cow in a fire in California. And the message here is that, yes, the flames were fueled by the high winds. The drought is present in California. It's not only the trees that are being hurt. There are highway closures. There are evacuations from people's homes. There's farmers' fields where food is being lost. And as you see from this cow, a threat to animals as well. Finally, I have this vision from Spain. We know already that 9 of the 10 hottest Junes on record have occurred since 2010, so that we know that this warming is very serious. We could all describe this in different ways, but what I wanted to say is that people have to stay cool. People's bodies can't live in 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And so we have to imagine the intensity of the heat and the small relief that's being made for these people from Spain. They're finding it hard to keep breathing in so many parts of the world simply because of heat. All right, so this, I hope, has laid out the stage that we have to address these issues urgently. And in the next slide, you'll see that there has been a thought for the last, I would say, 5 or 10 years that we could increase our GDP, and at the same time, we could reduce pressure on the environment. So, sort of like having your cake and eating it too. You know, you can do both. And actually, this model suggests that here's the GDP line. I don't think you can, if you can see the line going, rounding up to the top. And then environmental pressures line is going along with time. And in this case, we could drop the environmental pressures all the way, and we could raise the GDP at the same time. And the problem is that it's really been difficult to achieve that. There is something we call relative decoupling, which you see on the screen, where the GEP increases less, and so there's less increase. So given this lesser increase, there's some environmental gain, but not nearly enough. And as much as I was excited about this 5 or 10 years ago, when people from the UN and so forth were examining this, I've looked at the articles, and absolute decoupling just very rarely happens. The one that we wish would happen, and relative decoupling a little bit more so, but this is not something that we can rely on. And most of all, GDP is an old metric. It counts money in a way that's really gone out of date. It's considered a metric of well-being, but what we really need to consider are metrics for human progress and a healthy environment. Let's look at the next one. So let's look at the planetary boundaries. I'm guessing not everyone knows about the planetary boundaries. They're very important. These are the lines that shouldn't be crossed. And what you see here are the 9 planetary boundaries that scientists from around the world have put together to say, we really can't cross these. Now, the diagram on the left is from 2009, the first round of this from the Stockholm Resilience Center. And you see there, the green is the safe space, right? The green is where you want to be. And in 2009, there were still a lot of question marks, but even a couple of things were being broached. And so you see that nitrogen is coming out from the green and into the red zone, and also genetic diversity. Well, what I show in the one to the right is that just in the year 2022, there are there are other cases of where scientists are saying, you know, we're losing on these. And the most recent one is novel. I can't, let's see if I can read that small print. Novel entities, these are chemicals, new chemicals that are actually have already been known to harm birds and other genetic and other genetics in people. So we watch these, we get redder and redder, as you can see, we get further and further away from the green space, from the safe space. And this has been a very effective way to follow our progress, but unfortunately, the progress suggests that these are running away from us. So let's see what we can do with all this. Let's look at the next slide. And I want to say this is the vision that has inspired me in my own work. It's a vision of a circular production system. Now, this was an article that was written in 1989 by the head of research and development at General Motors in the US. And his people, he and his staff said, gee, you know, what we've got to do is not just throw things away, but we have to have a circular production system. And this was the first article of my own field of industrial ecology. So I want to stress this, it's a good leader into the circular economy. It shows us that in the green print, in an industrial ecosystem, and that would be a car factory or many other industries, the consumption of energy and materials is optimized, waste generation is minimized, and the effluents from one process serve as the raw materials for another. So for me, this is an integrated fashion, the way we should be doing these things. And this green line is exactly what I've been doing my own research on for 20 years. So I'm very excited about this. Let's take a look at the circular economy as it's been coming up. On the next slide. One of the ways that so many people in the world know about the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is that it's done a great job of making people aware of the fact that these are really important, really extreme issues, and we have to have a solution that everybody can understand. And so I've seen this in the UNIS material. I think these 3 boxes are a very good framework for the circular economy. And yet they're not a recipe for the circular economy. They raise the important ideas about eliminating waste and pollution, about circularity and making materials and products circular. And broader than the idea of products is the notion of regenerative nature. So it's a very far-reaching framework. It's gotten millions of people, I think, to recognize that recycling just isn't what you should be doing, but you've got to reach out more. You've got to work hard in order to create a circular economy. So let's look at how the EU has been doing this. In the next slide, and I want to say much admiration for the EU, because they're really putting their money where their mouth is. And so I just picked a few things, but this is the circular economy package that keeps being updated at the EU. And what I've highlighted in the yellow is the idea that this is what we need to do. We need to reduce environmental impacts and the costs of production. And so what the EU is actually proposing are tools that will encourage people to be able to know what to do. On the left-hand side, I put a lot of the metrics, you know, of what they're actually shooting for in their goals. 65% of municipal waste reduced, and lots more recycling of paper and cardboard. All of these are very much worth a good look, because they're real and they're being acted on right now. And that's a wonderful thing. Finally, I'd like to close with some hopeful material, but some reminders. I must say that I do scan the internet a lot to see what's happening with companies. And I just picked this one at random, a Finnish company, because I saw that they had 5 circular economy products that everyone will be using in 2030. Now, who knows if that's true, but it's an ambition, it's innovation, it's people working, and you can see renewable genes and methane-driven plastics. Very, very interesting. We should keep track of all these things. But how can we keep expectations high? Sometimes we say, oh, let's have something, a circular economy, sustainability. How can we really deliver on it? And without going so far over that people say, gee, this is everything now. We don't want to lose any effectiveness. We want to stay with being on the road for a circular economy by joining together. So I thought I'd close with this quote from my colleague Terry Yossi in the journal Green Biz, not a journal, but a business journal. And I think this is very important to leave on, that the path towards a circular economy lies not in high altitude resolutions and manifestos, but through decidedly less glamorous earthbound work. So let's all join together for this earthbound work, and let's do it now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marianne. And I think your last statement is actually a great transition to the next segment and to the speakers, where we're going to hear from two entrepreneurs on the ground on how this actually looks in practice, making a circular economy work, where we've been looking at one of the streams that you pointed out, which is keeping products and materials in circles. And I just want also to reiterate the three levers in a circular economy that are also priority areas of UNOS Environment Hub, on which basis we develop our programs and where we offer support programs for entrepreneurs, social business entrepreneurs, and other organizations who want to engage, which is the first and foremost priority of preventing waste and pollution. Then second, keeping the materials in the circle. And thirdly, the regeneration of natural resources. So thank you very much for that overview, Marianne, and for giving us another reminder on how far we have gone within just a few years of reaching our planetary limits. All right, next, I would like to ask our next speaker, Prince Gawame Akpata, to the stage, who is the co-founder and CEO of Caliba Ghana Limited. He will tell us more in detail what he is doing on the ground with regards to plastic pollution. He holds a postgraduate certification in global environmental studies from the University of Oslo in Norway, and a first-class degree in information technology from the Ghana Technology University College in Accra. And he has over 6 years experience working in the entrepreneurship and digital space in West Africa. Prince, I would like to, I don't see you yet here, if you can turn on your camera and explain us the role of technology in your organization, in your business, and give us some insights on finance mechanism solutions to achieve circularity in the plastic sector, and the current constraints that you are experiencing on the ground. Over to you, Prince. Okay, I'm seeing a message from Prince saying that he has a bad internet connection. Are you able to speak without the camera on? Or not possible at all?
Hello.
Hi, Prince. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you well.
Thanks, Christina. Sorry, I'm currently at the countryside where our factory is, and the network seems to be very terrible today. If it's okay, I'm gonna have my my video turned off. So my name is Prince. I'm the CEO of Caliba. Just to tell you what we do, we are basically the first plastic credit certified facility in West Africa, where we're actually recovering ocean-bound plastics from various parts of the country, bringing it to our factory, where it's recycled. We're working with a value chain of over 200 waste pickers in the value chain that are picking from the landfills, which currently Ghana has no effective segregation program. Everything really goes into one bin, and then it comes into, it's picked up by a waste company, it goes to the landfill where it's burnt. The common thing is to burn or incinerate our waste. And so when we came into the space, we decided to build what we call a buyback project, where we have buyback centers across various districts and cities where people can really drive and get there and have their waste collected and get an incentive for it. We are paying incentive through cash, through food items for certain communities, and through vouchers for diplomats and rich communities that don't really need money for it, but a way of encouraging them to segregate their waste. So this is what we do at Caliba. We are also very privileged to join the Value Cred project, and as I'll say, the Value Cred project is a project with the UNIS Environmental Hub, where we are testing and piloting more like a blockchain technology that would allow us to ensure traceability along the value chain and empower waste pickers that we're working with. So the Value Chain project, it's actually a project that allows us to give smartphones to aggregators that are working on the landfills, and give smartphones to center managers. These are people that are at the centers in communities that are buying plastics. And then these smartphones have an app that allows them to fully recognize and give registration to pickers. And it captures very simple data like their name, their details, their ID, and then we can really formalize them, and then they are paid for their waste. And this waste comes to us at Caliba, and we also ensure that it's fully recycled and exported to our partners in Europe, where it's used in a food grade material. Our end goal at Caliba is to ensure that we go into total food grade by 2025. But for now, we recycle them, we cold wash them. It's recycled, it's washed, it's packaged and exported to Europe, where it's used to make other food packaging materials. So that is how we're working. It's amazing. And I'll say over 80% of the waste we generate are from waste pickers. And in Ghana, the waste sector is gender-based. You have men massively collecting e-waste, and over 80% of people in the plastic sector collecting plastics are women, simply because the waste is light. Plastic waste are much more lighter, and women focus in this sector. And so at Caliba, we ensure that part of our huge model is to ensure that waste pickers and people that bring materials to our centers have access to PPEs, have access to health insurance. We provide life insurance for them. A part of it is to save a credit of what they bring to the center per kilo, and provide them an annual insurance to ensure that they are insured from health hazards. We've been doing this since 2020 when COVID started, because we realized that waste pickers were affected by COVID, but they still had to continue their source of livelihood by picking. And so these are just examples of really what is happening at Caliba, and how we work with Value Cred to ensure traceability, to create recognition for waste pickers. We are giving them ID cards as well, where people recognize their role as pickers, and formalizing their business through the provision of what we call credit. So there are waste pickers that are registered with us for more than 2 years now. We know on average how many kg. So it allows us to have data. So data is very important. I think that's what the Value Cred project is it's all about. So gathering data, being able to make sense of the data, being able to understand the waste pickers, where they're coming from, what is the average collection, and then create a better program for them. And I think it's really helping us to appreciate the work of pickers, because if there are no pickers, then we don't have a business, and they are very essential. They are being recognized for the work they do. they're not being stigmatized. At some point, people pour water on them and drive them away from, digging into their waste piles or their bins. We're changing that narrative by the way they dress, and the way they show up with smartphones, and the way they are conscious about their health and well-being. And more importantly, working at policy side with the local government to ensure that they are recognized. And I think the key problem they have is they are scared of recognition because it comes with taxation. Because once you have formality, then people begin to say, okay, then you have to be taxed because government is all about tax. And so how do you have that dialogue where the municipal government understands that they have a very key and essential roles that the waste companies are playing, that they are playing. And so it's good to take them off the tax bracket. And I think that is what we're working with the Ministry of Environment in Ghana to implement. Yeah, that's all I can say. I think I had a 5-minute window, but if there's any question, I'll be happy. Sorry, guys, I couldn't share my slide, but thank you so much.
No worries, Prince. I think this was very insightful and very complete. And I think many points that you mentioned are so valid, not only for Ghana, but for other places around the world where similar challenges are being faced. I was wondering if maybe one follow-up question on the implementation of technology to actually trace data for making such a system work and to obtain the plastic credits. Can you maybe just tell us a bit of the practical work that you are doing? I imagine, giving the waste pickers smartphones for them, how easy was it for them to get used to it, to grasp what the purpose for it is, and maybe some other constraints that you have where you said like you would wish that this would actually make your life easier. Maybe also what people here in the audience could do for making for a social business like yours the work more easy.
Thanks, Christina. So I think in as much as we've rolled out Clean Hub and Value Cred and other blockchain technologies to ensure traceability, one of the key I think the challenges are on various levels. So we have the waste pickers level, we have the aggregators. These are people that have small waste pickers. I mean, they have some amount of money, so they can buy from waste pickers in huge quantity, and then they sell to Caliba. And then we have the buyback centers where it's like a deposit point where people can drive through or get there. Waste pickers can also bring there, and they get an incentive for it. And so at the waste pickers level and the aggregators level, we're having challenge with the use of smartphones. So these are people that use feature phones. So feature phones are more SMS based and doesn't really use Android app. It's just your normal Nokia 360, green screen, and just to make calls. This is what they know, And so what we did was through the Value Cred project was to invest in tablets. And so we had tablets, we installed these platforms on the tablets. We had various sessions and trainings with them. But it still took more than a month, couple of trainings for them to get things right. We currently still have situations where there are double entries or triple entries because the waste pickers, look, in the age bracket, over 70% of waste pickers are above the age of 40. Most of them are not educated. I mean, they didn't go to school. So it also involves teaching them how to use computer, how to use a smartphone, even how to read and write. So at some point in some of the centers, we had to use a deputy center manager who could really understand and read, because in these centers, I mean, Ghana is predominantly, these communities speak local dialects. So in hiring the centers, English speaking is not the key important thing for us. It's also about being able to communicate with the local people and tell them the story and what we're there for, and be able to just do basic recording in kilos for us as
Right.
much. But tech was, I think that was a key challenge we had in the technology aspect. And one way around that is continuous training. And we've seen some improvement, but also some lapses in the data entries. I think that's what I could say. We thought providing the tablet solved the problem. And I think it's begs the question, do we have to force the technology on them? Because some of them are also sort of getting fed up of using the technology. They prefer the simple system, and so they record it manually, and then we get someone who can use the technology to use. So it's a question about how many people are open to change. You know, it's an older generation. Some are pretty old, and you should expect this. And so the question then means that, do we consider how we hire in our next buyback centers that we're setting 20 more by the end of the year? Do we hire people that are much more younger and lay these people off if we're going to, I mean, just for us to think about the role of technology, right? And how do we hire going forward? If we're going to roll out more technology, does that mean we should hire more younger people, more educated people, to take the roles of these old people who are old and had nothing doing and sitting at home, but had people they had to depend on because they are wage speakers? So at least a lot of questions that remain that has to be answered, that I don't really have all the answers now, but questions we're thinking through here at Caliba.
Great. Thanks, Prince, for those insights. I think at this point, I would like to move to Ayapan, who is a project manager with UNOS Environment Hub in India, where we have also been testing value grad. So we have several locations where this new financing mechanism was tested, and Ayapan has been working with scrap shops, with aggregators in Tamil Nadu, in rural India. And I would like to hear from Ayapan if you have experienced similar situation and challenges as in Ghana, and to give us some brief insights from your experience working in India, also maybe highlighting what has been different there. Over to you, Ayapan.
Yeah, so I would like to introduce, thanks for introducing me, and I would like to give some insight about my experience. It is a little bit similar like Rwanda, but majorly here the supply chain was ruled by the scrap shops and also informal waste collection. The impact about the aggregators was, it seems like a formal company. Aggregators mostly have registered and get the certification from the government, and they can able to have the access about loans from the government, and they can be formalized very easily. And most of the aggregators are being already formalized in this sector. But compared to the scrap shop and the informal waste collectors, they are being struggled, who are working in the ground and collect the plastic waste from the ground. So obviously the value credit system in India is going to help more compared to the aggregator. It's only focusing on the scrap shop and also informal waste collector. It is a bit different from that different region maybe, but in our experience we faced little challenge in the initial phase of implementation part. People are very hesitant to adopt these legislations into their informal sector, because they are very afraid to, we are going to spotlight in the wrongly, we are going to publish these photos, and what kind of we are going to collect the data from them. They are afraid to, we are going to expose this data into the government, and the government will be banned to collect the waste from the environment, like bad kind of the thoughts they get. But we have continuous follow up with all the informal communities as well as scrap shop, and we explain how this value credit actually going to help in the futures, and why we are testing now in India, and how it will impact their lives, and what kind of benefits are going to get it over this value credit project. And then they will convince, because the output of the projects were convinced them actually. That is to be honest, that is the main theme. So after once they convince, they ready to be part of our testing, and also they ready to use our digital solutions which we are providing to collect the data from the each stakeholder. Day by day they learn, and after over the 30 which means after the fourth week, they, without any assistance, they can able to track all the data by using the digital solution. It is first that 1 month they face the real challenges by using in terms of technical terms we entered in the digital app, but after the fourth week they performed very well by using the digital app. And mostly a scrap shop owner expressed that after finishing this testing also they want to use the clean app to collect the data, because they can monitor the data for the entire month. It can be easily to analyze who will be contribute more to the scrap shops. For example, X person contribute more means they can be appreciated and they will be recognized by the scrap shop owner for his contribution in terms of anything by giving the money or giving additional payment for that collected material. Like so, this kind of impact we created in this last 4 months. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing those experiences. And I hear that similar challenges, especially related to capacity building in that informal sector, is where we are still missing, and where maybe also our social business community can provide support and or see on how additional support could be given there. Anything that surprised you, or something where you already saw a change in the people's life? It's maybe a little bit too early because this was only a testing phase over a couple of months, but maybe also some feedback that you received directly from people on how it's impacting their life, or some of their wishes that you would like to share with the audience.
Yeah. So mostly initial stage, I just wonder and also surprised about that how the informal sectors have been operated. Initially, we just enter into the new region. I just traveled from Pondicherry and I newly go through the region and how the region was operated by the informal sectors. I just wonder that everyone they commit themselves into the hazardous environment without any safety kits or any prevention. There is no any regulations to prevent all kind of activities. What are they going through day by day? I just wondering that the people. I just going to have a conversation with them. How you are been working as it is, and it is okay to be. And they said it is okay to be. No one ready to answer or no one ready to support us to bring out of this situation. So it is as it is we are working, and it is also wondering me. And after we entering as a valid tester in this region, we gather all the informal waste collectors in this community, and we just teaching them and how the waste has to be collected from the source. Actually, informal waste collectors are the person who is collected waste from the sources directly. So we just train them and we just educated them in terms of HSC. It is not about the value-created testing objective, but even though we just train them in the initial stage, we give a lot of guidance to operating the waste from the source. And after this, we introduce the digital interface. So initially, they are very struggled to give the data in the digital interface. In terms of they get started the material types and they need to weigh in the different categories at each time. And they in the day by day practice they get very easily adapt that, and it is very helpful them. After 1 month they review the data. Actually they they had a chance to review the data, how much PET in terms of type of plastic. They review with the scrap shop owners, and they get, if any mismatch with the daily collection data, they can raise the questions with the scrap shop owner in terms of they get a correct amount of money for that collected material. Previously, there is no any pre-checking method in terms of getting money from the scrap shop owner. If waste collectors give the material to the scrap shop owner has to be give the money back to the informal waste collector. There is no any data recording system as we provided as a digital solution. Then after once we enter into the system, they review with our digital interface and they can raise the question to the scrap shop owner. I give this amount of plastic, so you should give this much of amount. Previously, the scrap shop owners may cheated the informal waste collector, but now there is no any chances to cheat that informal waste collector. This is one impact I saw it, and most of the informal waste collectors are come with me, and personally they share their feedback like this. It's very helpful to me, and there is no any chance to cheat us according to the digital interface, because and mostly after we interpret the digital interface in the scrap shop, previously they might cheated by in the wrong payment by using. once we enter into the system, we give the digital solution to capture the weight with the photos. So in that time, there is no any chances to teach that or change the weight of the plastic in the weighing machine. So it's another impact I created. And when we gather collecting all the social, environmental, and social background of the informal waste collectors by using the value-created digital solution, they initially they associate to share that social background, and once they convince about our objectives, they open up with their social background and how what kind of challenges they are facing are very crucial actually. It makes very surprised that most of the informal waste collectors doesn't have that basic needs like a shelter, hose, and water, electricity, and most of 95% of informal waste collectors doesn't finish their primary education itself. And there is so like a lot of concepts like we have.
Lots of different learnings. Yeah, very, very interesting. And thank you so much for sharing those insights firsthand. I see this has been a good learning opportunity, and I'm looking forward for continue creating opportunities and positive impact on those waste workers within the Value Create program. So thank you very much, Ayapan, for all your help and supports in regard on this and speaking today to us. Thank you. All right, I would like to move on now to our third and final segment, which is the regeneration of natural resources in a circular economy. And we're gonna have two speakers on that session. First, I would like to invite on stage Marianne Chacho, who is the project director at Compass Foundation, an organization that works to build peace and protect the environment in Colombia and in the world. She has a bachelor's degree in cognitive neuroscience and a master's degree in social and cultural psychology. And currently in Compass, she works with local communities and leaders from all around Colombia, contributing to their organization's development to build sustainable peace development in the territories most affected by the conflict. So all the way from Ghana to India, we are now going to Colombia, and in particular to the Amazon region, where we have been collaborating on a program called Paz Verde, which translates to green peace. And we're later also going to hear from the coordinator on UNOS Environment Hub side about some of those social business examples that have been created. But first, I would like you, Maria Antonia, first of all, very happy and thank you for joining us on this occasion today. And we would be interested in hearing about the current threats to biodiversity in the Amazon. If you can give us an update on how serious is it, and what are the current challenges that you see with regards to deforestation there?
Hi, Christina. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Well, there are several factors that affect biodiversity: climate change, pollution, but without doubt, human beings can be perhaps the biggest threat. The way we are consuming and producing has an immense negative impact on deforestation and therefore on biodiversity. Extensive livestock farming implies a huge loss of natural habitats, and also the accelerated expansion of the agricultural frontier has threatened many species, not only because it sacrifices large extensions of vegetation, but also because of the use of agrochemicals and pesticides. In Colombia, for example, we had a more than 50-year-old long war, and it had a huge impact on our forests and therefore on our biodiversity. The conflict contributed largely to deforestation and degradation of 4.5 million hectares. That's approximately the size of Denmark. The sabotaging, for example, of oil facilities resulted in spills of over 4 million barrels, which is 16 times the amount spilled in the Exxon Valdez disaster. So if you can see, this is very serious and it's very worrying. Every species has an important role within our ecosystem. and the cohabiting of the different species, it creates an equilibrium for the forest, for the water resources. We all know how important the forests are for counteracting climate change. And so the loss of one species completely messes up this equilibrium. So it's very, very serious.
Mhm. Yeah, indeed. And what do you see as the main challenges in promoting productive initiatives in harmony with the environment in a biodiverse ecosystem such as the Amazon? What are those current challenges, and what needs to be done also to the social business community, what we should be focusing on to reverse this or prevent this?
So from Fundación Compás, we see there are two main challenges that can be grouped in two different groups. One are the cultural and educational challenges, where we need to change the current framework and replace it with a more sustainable one that's in harmony with the forest and ecosystem. But this obviously implies switching this deeply ingrained framework that has been ongoing for decades, and relearning about good practices, about how to develop initiatives that are sustainable and then can actually promote biodiversity and the forests. In Colombia, for instance, there's a very deep fragmentation between the cities and urban areas and the large green areas where our forests are. And so it's hard to drive behavioral change in that sense when there's such a disconnection, when people are not aware of how important and about the forests where we live. So first of all, we have that cultural and educational aspect to address, which is very important. And the second aspect to address would be to provide development opportunities for the communities who have been historically alienated, communities who live in the forests and in the rural areas where the state does not have any offer of formal employment, to grow a business. People don't have opportunities to grow their own businesses, much less grow their own businesses in a sustainable way. So many times they just have to work with extensive farming and thus contribute to the threats of biodiversity. So it's necessary to promote economic projects that generate rentability and that have a collective impact. We believe that having a collective impact is of huge importance. We can empower communities so that it's themselves who understand and who take care of the forest and of the biodiversity that surrounds them, and at the same time earn a living. So, for example, in Colombia, we have a community ecotourism, which is an amazing way in which you can empower communities to take care of their environment while at the same time having an opportunity to have a business.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think it's really important also to raise this awareness. It's not only big companies going in there destroying the forests, but it's actually the lack of opportunities for many local communities, why they unknowingly probably also of the effects that it will create while deforesting the forest, that the entire situation has a deep educational component as well. So yeah, thank you very much also for sharing some of the examples with ecotourism. And maybe you can also tell us a bit about the elements, the actions of the Paz Verde project that is promoting sustainable business through social business practices, and how this is tackling deforestation and the biodiversity conservation in the Amazon.
So Paz Verde is a new program at Fundación Compás that unites national and international efforts for the environmental protection of strategic areas in Colombia, such as the Amazon. In Paz Verde, we seek to strengthen and promote productive initiatives that are working to protect the environment through three main components. One is strengthening their business model. We need to offer communities an alternative that actually renders a way in which they can earn a living. So this is very important. Also strengthening their environmental knowledge, which I pointed out in the previous section. It's important that local communities are aware of the environmental threats, are aware of how to take care of the forest that surround them, of the species that surround them. And third, which is also very important, is strengthening the leadership that these communities carry out. By strengthening their leadership, we enable them to work in groups, to advocate for the forests, for their rights, for their biodiversity. So if we strengthen that social, emotional part, we are giving them very powerful tools to actually carry out these projects. The initiatives that are strengthened through this program have a strong focus on community projects, precisely because we believe that it's through community initiatives, through group initiatives, that you can actually promote the permanence of these groups in the territories, promote sustainability, and actually strengthen their sense of belonging. We usually do not take as much care of the things that we do not believe belong to us. So that's a very important point here. We need local communities who live within the forest to actually feel a sense of belonging and a sense that where they live is an important place, not only for Colombia, but for the entire world. In Paz Verde, we are currently working with initiatives of a young generation. That's also an important point. I think the youth has an important role to play here, and that's why we chose to work with projects that are led by the youth in different departments in Colombia, all around Colombia, not only within the Amazon. We will also expand this project to add the Pacific region, which also has huge forests and ecosystems, very important for the biodiversity. And specifically, how does this program tackle deforestation? So we work in articulation with the communities to first have programs of reforestations. It's important to enrich the forest and restore the already degraded areas, especially those that are close to water sources. We need also to strengthen the local economies that flourish by taking care of the Amazon. Right now, with all these carbon offset initiatives and carbon offset projects, there's a huge opportunity to give these communities access to all these international markets of carbon offsets by taking care of the forests in the Amazon. And through this community reforestation project, we also want to restore areas that were used for coca leaf growing and for cattle, and to create ecological paths that amplify the habitat of species that are key for the well-being of the ecosystem. So that is one way. Another way is by monitoring biodiversity. So, and this makes reference to the educational and cultural aspect of how to tackle deforestation. If we're not aware of the biodiversity that surrounds us, then it's going to be very difficult to actually generate early warnings around losses or around threats. So it's important to strengthen the processes of characterization and surveillance within the communities. So we can give them the knowledge of what to look out for. In this particular point, we are working with WCS and CEALDES to develop with the community monitoring tools to provide equipment and infrastructure to carry out this monitoring successfully. This is something that is very novel for communities. So we want to equip them with the best tools and information we can. And the third component to tackle deforestation is by developing local agreements on land use and nature. And this is very much related with the strengthening of the leadership. When we help communities to seek consensus between what they want and what they want to live off, it's very important. That strengthens community processes and kind of renders a protection from other outside people that want to arrive to these regions to maybe cut the forests or do something to the land. So this organizing the groups is very important. Also, by organizing these groups, we can enable them to share knowledge and best practices of successful experiences. There is a way in which we can have sustainable businesses and protect the forests. So if we are able to share these experiences, it's going to be very interesting and strengthen local leadership, which I already mentioned. So I think those are the main ways in which Paz Verde is tackling deforestation.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of those insights. And also thank you for this important work that you're doing at Compass Foundation and partnering with UNIS Environment Hub on the entrepreneurial part on helping those initiatives to set up businesses. And for that, I would like to ask Manuela Rodriguez on stage to very briefly give some examples of these youth-led, women-led initiatives that we have been working with in the Amazon within the Paz Verde program. Over to you, Manuela.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Maria Antonia, for describing so well the program that we have been developing together. Probably be very fast and just giving you a snapshot of the different initiatives we have been working with. So basically, as you know, we have been working in the Amazon. For those of you that don't know where the Colombian Amazon is, you can see briefly the different places where the initiatives we are working with are located. They're at the heart of the Amazon, and they're in very remote places where they're surrounded fully with amazing biodiversity, and they have struggled with a lot of the Colombian conflict. We work with 10 initiatives, but we don't have the time to present all of them. So I want to briefly show some of them. The first one is Asochon. This is a women-led social business. They have been working with the chontaduro fruit. This is a very known fruit that is derivative from the Amazon. It grows between January to March. They have large crops and have harvest season. So they have been developed products like flour and canned syrup. You can see the type of products they have been working with. They have their own have been developing the entire process of production. Then we have Charum. This is another one. This is youth-led social business. They produce sugarcane. They include some derivatives that have flavors like lemon, ginger, honey, and other fruits from the Amazon region. This is a long tradition community that have been working with sugarcane, and they are trying to preserve the knowledge generation from generation, specifically the youth, that they tend to migrate to more rural areas to incentivize them to stay and continue with the traditions with a more sustainable model behind it. So you can see from sugarcane, they can create other types of products, like you can see right here, to sweeten different products, juices, and even cooking pastries with them. Then we have Aso Paraíso. It's also a youth-led social business. They specialize in acai. This is one also fruit that is very known in the Amazon, not only in Colombia, but also in Peru and Brazil. They have dedicated to creating pulp, and they have a business-to-business model where they have they extract the acai fruit and they convert it into pulp that can be used as well for ice creams and juices and other types of products. And they're trying to commercialize it mainly for ice cream shops in the main cities in Colombia. And then lastly, Musu Pacari, this is in both youth and indigenous-led social business that dedicate to cocoa bean. They're developing table chocolate and chocolate sweets with different fruits as well from the Amazon region. They have achieved to have a sustainable production in a way that they are even selling their cocoa beans to one of the largest, if not the largest, chocolate producer in Colombia. They have a long tradition of cocoa as well in their community, and they as well are encouraging them to keep sustainable practices and encourage youth to be part of these productive systems and not to migrate to the urban areas. Thank you. That was fast.
Thank you so much, Manuela. And we have reached the end already of our session. And I would like to ask Sohail Ahmed, that I think most of you know, pioneer in the environment space and the managing director of Grameen Shakti, to invite him on stage to wrap up our discussion and provide the closing remarks. Sohail, over to you.
Thank you. So interesting. I must say I learned a lot. When Christina approached me with my role in the session that I have to close the session, I jokingly told her that does it mean that I don't have to, I cannot have nap between the sessions. But then it was so appealing and so compelling. I think all the audiences are glued about the presentation which you have seen. All the audiences are so attentive with all the information shared. And it's all not only the examples, all the efforts being taken could have been reproduced, could have been followed. That's the most interesting part. It's not just a presentation, it is something, a learning course. I'll start with Mario. Very interesting. With the GDP, I had understanding that they are coupling the GDPs and the degradation of the environment. But she started with the decoupling of the GDP and the environment degradation, and which is a matter of hope. And she also, but then, yeah, there are glimpses of concern where she's shown that the planetary boundaries are dangerously violated, and there is no time, we have to take actions. In fact, if we come from the beginning, how all these things being happen, from the economic, as per my understanding, these are all started from the economic activities. Because in economic activities, what you do, you extract the resources and then you generate waste while you're doing so. And this is how, be it a materialistic waste, be it is fumigating the carbon, and that is how we are started impacting the climate. So Maria very nicely showed with the data that how planetary boundaries are being dangerously violated. She showed us the examples, the steps taken by the EU, and the final word of her, with the hope that let's join the club. It's not far, we all can try to start doing it. And she very nicely, explained the theory of recycling, which many of us know, but then he again reiterated to that. Followed by the princess example of what they're doing in Ghana, which is again an excellent example, that how they're collecting those wastes and helping in the process, helping the community to having the livelihood. Also, she talked about the value cut project, how the data is important. But the most interesting thing is, see that when the system is being laid up, the people's proper share of the money being ensured. And I also noticed there's a byproduct. When Christina asks about how difficult was the capacity building, Prince talked about educating them. The objective was to do the recycling of the plastic, but in the process, the community being also being educated. So this is maybe a byproduct also. The whole community life standard, livelihood is getting improved. Not only the plastic matter is being attended, but the community interest is being attended, which is excellent example of doing work. Next, I think Yepen, I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing it rightly. The Yepen was talking about what they are doing in India. And then again, he re-emphasized on the, the importance of the data collection, how it's being managed, how the informal sector is managing the waste in India. India, as per my data, is the third largest emission production country in the world. I think producing about 3 some million wastes, plastic waste in a year. And the good news is, again, as per the data, 60% of those waste being recycled. And this informal sector is a key vehicle, key system to collect and, help to those plastic being recycled. So it is so important that you attend those informal sector, educate them, and try to transform them in the in proper way in a formal sector. Thereafter, I think we heard Maria. She talked about the biodiversity, the climate change, global warming, how it's being affecting the biodiversity. I would pick up when her last instances, how we can strengthen the process of those biodiversity, helping those biodiversity thing. Maria mentioned about strengthening the business model, environmental knowledge, and the leadership. So this is where this business model, because when you talk about biodiversity, the destruction of the forest in many ways related to the livelihood of the people. I come from a background of renewable energy, and when we talk about the ICS, the biomass, how much you go and tell them that don't chop the wood to fire your stove, they won't listen to that because they don't have enough money to buy or go for any other means. So when you have a proper business model, when you are strengthening their way of, means of life, that is the way you can take them away. It's not just the good words, because they look at, you're the privileged classes, you can come and advocate, give us a lot of advices, but our fate and the way of living is not the way you are doing it. So you have to be there, you have to be on the ground, and you have to work them, change their, again, the examples of setting up businesses in the Amazon area. This is how actually we need to do that. So this is the way to be on the ground, to work with them, and then, set this small business model. This is where the professors are, the social business model are coming in. And this is how important today is the social business to change all these things in the world. To conclude, I would just one more line, Christian, I know the time is very short. So when you're talking about extraction of the resources, in similar way, when you talk about energy, since I come from the background of the energy, it's again, the problem with the energy is the primary resource, the primary source of the energy. And then when you talk about recycle, we talk about renewable. So with this recycle and the renewable, we hope we can change the world. And then to do that, we have to more and more incorporate the social business model, because otherwise only not the good words will going to change this. We have to put things in a right framework, right model, and this is how we can hopefully try to change the world. Over to you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Sohail, for this fantastic summary. And I thought this was an amazing concluding words when you said, when you mentioned the power and the effect of the social business model that we have there as a tool. So thank you a lot for to you and to all of the other speakers for this interesting discussion. And thanks to the audience for listening. For those who would like to learn more about UNOS Environment Hub's activities, on June 30th, on Thursday at 11:30 CT, we're gonna present some of our latest activities and also some findings from our first impact report. So thanks for listening today, and hope to see you on Thursday and again next year. Over to you, to the organizers, and sorry for exceeding the session time slightly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. May I please request everyone to turn on their camera so we can take a quick photo? Professor Yunus, if you are there. tech team, please let us know when the photo has been taken.
Got it. Got it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Good. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Good night.